right, thank you for coming to this video. I'm really excited to kind of walk you through what this visualization and how it really is going to help the church make better decisions. So before we start, really I want to kind of walk you through just the high level stuff that's kind of popping out on this visualization. So every dot on this visualization represents a country or economy. The reason why I say economy is depending on the global organization that is used to define a country or economy, they differ on that. So we'll just say it's a country or an economy. But there's 238 dots. The other thing you'll recognize is the different size of the dots. So the different size of the dots show the total population of that country that is not Christian. So the bigger the dot, the larger the population that is not Christian. The smaller the dot, the smaller the population that's not Christian. And the other thing that pops out is the actual colors of these dots itself. And so the colors represent the continent in which the country or economy resides. And you can see on the right hand side here, there's your legend that will kind of show you, what continent that country is a part of. So now that's kind of to address what's probably very obvious here and sticking out. But now going back to the original problem that we want to solve, which is optimizing our investments and making better decisions for our investments globally. So there's two real factors that we want to focus in on here. One is obviously the investment, the dollar. And when you think about investing the dollar globally, a key thing to remember is that spending our dollar in one country is either going to decrease the value of that dollar or increase the value of our dollar. So as an example, if we go to the US, we take $1, we go to a country, wherever in the world, that dollar might be worth actually the equivalent of $3 there, right? On the other hand, we could go to some countries and actually where our dollar actually decreases in value. So that is a very important feature to keep in mind as we look at this. The next thing is, okay, we are focusing on missions. So why are we focusing on missions? It's to reach people that have not heard the gospel. So the other important aspect to consider is, okay, the percent of a country that is not Christian. That's the other key feature to keep in mind. So with that, what I want to show you is how that is how this visualization is constructed. So if I were to zoom down here on the horizontal axis, this is showing the impact of the US dollar. And so right here, if we focus on a 1 would be $1 US. If I go over to a different country, it's worth about one US dollar. So the countries that are close to this line would be countries that $1 US here is equal to about $1 US over there. All the way over, we'll just say over here, like a 4 as an example. If I take $1, if I go to these countries that are close to this line, the power of the US dollar would be the equivalent of $4 US. So that's how you can read this over here, right? So what we would be interested in, if we want to optimize our investments, is, hey, what countries will my $1 US have a bigger impact, where it will be worth more? So we'd be interested on kind of countries here on the right hand side. Now next, when it comes to the need, if I focus on the vertical axis here, this is the percent of a country that is not Christian. So if we were to look down here, this 25 countries that are right around this line, so 25%, about 25% of the population of that country is not Christian. So that's, and then if you go on all the way up to the other side, you could say, so 75 would equal 75% of that country is not Christian. You go up here, you get closer to 80, 90% of that. So when you look at the vertical axis, what we want to say here is, well, we're interested in obviously the countries where there's a higher percent of people that are not Christian. So you want to go up. So if you take these two features, what you would want is, as an investor, is to say, hey, I want my dollar to go the furthest, and I want it to go where the largest need is. So if you look on this graph, where that is in the upper right-hand side, right? Because your dollar goes the furthest, and then also the need is the greatest. And so it's up over here, right? And so one important thing that's obviously going to kind of stick out when you look at this is, wow, the color of the dots. It's interesting. It gets very stark. And actually, when I put all this data together and dropped this application on top of it to look at this data, I mean, it was incredible, like seeing this, where the countries where the dollar goes the furthest and there's the greatest need, it's these light purple and dark purple countries or economies, which are indicative of Africa and Asia. But then I think almost as powerful is the inverse of that. If you go to the bottom left-hand side, what you see, this is where the dollar's not the strongest, and the need isn't the greatest. It's not as great as obviously the upper right. And then what is very stark, which is very apparent, is the color of these dots, which is the yellow and the greens, which is reflective of South America, North America, and Europe. And so it's not to say that there's not a need there. Clearly there is. But what this data allows us to see is if we take off our geographical blinders and we look at this with an eternal perspective and a global perspective, there is a stark reality here that shows our investments have been, you can look at it this way, our investments have been very, I guess, effective, you could say, in a way, in South America, North America, and Europe. Or you could also then say, but conversely, there's a lot of work to do in these countries here on the upper right. And so, this is also then, when you understand this powerful of a framework to look at it, this is what venture capitalists, private equity people, if you're an executive in a Fortune 500 company, you're going to want frameworks like this to be able to look at and assess where you want to spend your money. Now, the reason why we don't want to be too prescriptive, like, okay, well, let's just go to these countries right over here and let's just, hone in like a laser here. It's a fixed flexed model. It's fixed in that we have the parameters, right? We're looking at dollar impact, we're looking at need. And so that helps organize countries and category, the countries and economies. But now what it allows us to do, if you are an individual all the way to the denomination and you have a certain skill set, as an example, let's say you are a medical doctor, let's say you work in construction, let's say you're really good at building wells, as an example. What it now allows you to do is to say, okay, of these certain countries that I want to help impact, and I have a certain skill set, let's say it's drilling wells, what of those countries have the greatest need for digging wells? Another one would be maybe malaria nets. What of these countries have the greatest need for malaria nets? Because this is, maybe it's a nonprofit that you have. So now it allows you to say, okay, you can drill in to these countries that you want to focus in on and create even a shorter list. Why that's so powerful is it not only it optimizes our investments of dollars to where the greatest needs are, it also then helps us optimize our capabilities and our skill sets to these particular countries and economies, right? So it really helps us optimize the individual all the way up to the denomination in a holistic way. So I hope that you really like this visualization because it really helps kind of frame the whole picture. There are other features up here that you can kind of look at. You can kind of feel free to check that out. One thing that you might actually like here is this upper right hand side. You'll see if you click on this guy, what it does, it draws like an invisible line vertically. And so whatever then countries you focus in on, it's going to pop up more information about those countries. That is a neat feature to look at. And then the other thing what you'll see is if you want to kind of create a cleaner slate, I'm interested in, let's just say, countries and maybe the dark purple. If you click the actual continent in the legend, you click it, you're going to see the dots of those countries in that continent are going to disappear. And so if you click on these, you'll see all of these dots start to disappear, and it creates even a cleaner graph where you can actually begin to see the need even more clearly. And then the last thing I'll mention here is, as you've seen, as I've been kind of hovering around on these, you'll see that there's information that pops out over each one of these dots. And so here I'll zoom into this one. This larger dot here is India, and you'll see what's being exposed here is the population that's not Christian is 1.3 billion. The percent not Christian, 98%. $1 equals as the power of the dollar, so $1 US would be the equivalent to about $3.2. And then also a persecution rank. I'll go into more details around all this data in other videos, but this video is really to get you oriented to this visualization and how to think about this in a macro way. So hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will look forward to walking you through the next video, which is going to be the interactive data table, which has all the data and more that this visualization is built on. So thank you again for watching it, and we'll see you in the next video.